Hi, friend. Welcome to Rainy Tales, a quiet place for gentle stories told beneath the sound of rain. Now, let's begin tonight's story. The rain had already been falling for an hour when I stepped beneath the yellow streetlight. It wasn't heavy rain, just a soft, steady curtain of drops that seemed to wrap the quiet street in a gentle hush. The kind of rain that made the world feel smaller, safer, as if all sharp edges had been blurred away. The glow from the lamp above me spread in a warm circle, turning every falling drop into a tiny golden thread. I stood there with my hands tucked into my coat pockets, breathing slowly, letting the cool air settle into my chest. It was the kind of night that didn't ask for anything. It only offered silence, space, and the chance to listen. I had always loved the way a streetlight could hold a moment still. Maybe that's why we chose this spot. Or maybe that's just where the message told me to come. Either way, the streetlight felt like a small lighthouse in the rain-steady, familiar, warm. A place where endings could sit gently instead of breaking apart. The quiet neighborhood around me smelled of wet pavement and drifting leaves. Somewhere behind a row of windows, someone was brewing tea. I could almost imagine the soft curl of steam rising from a cup, the way hands wrapped themselves around warm ceramic for comfort. The rain gathered on my coat sleeves, rolled down in slow lines, and every now and then a drop slid off the edge of my collar and found its way to the base of my neck, making me shiver just a little. It wasn't unpleasant, just a reminder that I was here, that all of this was real. I closed my eyes for a moment and listened, the delicate tapping of rain on metal railings, the sigh of distant tires moving carefully across slick roads, the faint hum of a street lamp that had probably been here longer than either of us. The world felt soft, as if it understood what this night was about. Waiting under the yellow streetlight, I couldn't help but think about how everything had led here. Not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, almost inevitable one. Some stories don't end with shouts or storms. Sometimes they end with a drizzle and a lamp glowing softly in the dusk. Sometimes goodbye doesn't hurt sharply. It just settles like mist. A gentle breeze carried the scent of rain-soaked earth and damp roses from a nearby garden. I remembered how you once stopped to smell those same roses on an early summer evening, laughing at how cliché it felt, but smelling them anyway, because small joys matter. Your voice had blended with the birdsong and the orange light of sunset that day. It had been one of those small, unremarkable moments that somehow lodges itself in memory. The kind you don't know is precious until later. Under the streetlight, time moved differently. Minutes folded into each other. The world slowed to the rhythm of raindrops, sliding down my umbrella and kissing the ground. I didn't check my phone. I didn't pace. I just stood there, breathing in the soft yellow light, feeling the quiet settle around me like a gentle blanket. If this was the place where our last words would bloom, then I wanted to be fully awake, for it. Cars passed now, and then only one or two, with windows fogged and headlights smudged by the rain. Their reflections rippled across the wet pavement like shifting memories. Everything looked softer in the rain. Even goodbyes, maybe. I kept imagining the sound of your footsteps approaching, though you had not arrived yet. I wondered what expression you would wear. Would you smile first? Would you look away? Would your voice be steady or trembling? Would mine? The streetlight hummed quietly above me, steady as a heartbeat. I tipped my head back slightly to look up. Raindrops fell through the circle of yellow light, each one catching the glow for just a heartbeat before disappearing into the dark below. Watching them fall felt like watching time itself moment after moment, small and gentle, slipping past. Maybe that's why this place felt right, because under a yellow streetlight, nothing rushed. Nothing demanded answers. Everything simply existed, gently, like the rain, and I needed that gentleness tonight more than I could admit. A part of me wished the rain would become heavier, loud enough to blur thoughts and wash everything clean. But another part appreciated this quiet drizzle, the way it didn't hide anything or pretend. It just accompanied the moment, soft and steady, like a friend who sits beside you without needing to say a word. The warmth of the warmth brushed against my skin, balancing the coolness of the rain. I held on to that warmth, letting it seep slowly into me, steadying me for whatever was to come. This night wasn't about regrets or anger. It wasn't even about endings, really. It was about acknowledgement, the tender kind that hurts and heals at the same time. Under the yellow streetlight, I whispered to myself, not words, just a soft breath, a quiet promise to stay gentle, no matter how the next hour unfolded. Maybe goodbye could be kind. Maybe it could leave a light behind instead of a wound. I listened again for your footsteps, and waited that we used to laugh so easily. That was the memory that drifted in first, as gently as the rain sliding down the lamppost. Standing there under the yellow light, I let it come back to me, not sharply, not with longing that hurt, but like a soft ripple on a quiet pond. I remembered the evenings when we walked home side by side, both of us tired from long days, but somehow full of small stories we couldn't wait to tell each other. The way your voice warmed whenever you talked about something you loved. The way you would tilt your head slightly when you listened, as if catching every detail mattered. There had been a night early in our friendship, before anything had names, when it rained almost exactly like this. Same soft drizzle, same misty air. You had forgotten your umbrella, and I pretended I didn't mind sharing mine, even though it barely covered both of us. We walked so close that our shoulders touched the entire way. Water dripped from the edges of the umbrella onto our shoes, and you kept apologizing in that half-laughing, half-serious way you had. I kept telling you it was fine. Secretly, I was grateful for the excuse to be close. At some point, a car drove by too fast, splashing a wave of water at our feet. We jumped back in the same instant, and your startled yelp dissolved into the biggest laugh I'd ever heard from you. I remember thinking how warm that laugh was, even on a chilly night. How it echoed in the air like something alive. You nudged me with your shoulder afterward, still giggling, and said, "Well, at least it's a memory now." And just like that, it was. A small one, a quiet one, but one that stayed. Under the streetlight tonight, the memory felt like a gentle hand on my back. Not pushing, not pulling, just resting there, steadying. It reminded me that what we shared once had been simple, real, and full of little moments that didn't try to be anything more than what they were. We had a habit back then, whenever it rained unexpectedly, you would stop beneath whatever shelter we could find, a tree, a doorway, a bus stop, and close your eyes. Rain makes everything softer, you would say, letting the drops patter around us while you took a slow breath. Even our thoughts. I didn't fully understand it then. I do now. Standing here, letting the night wrap itself gently around me, I could feel my thoughts soften in the same way. What had once been tangled with frustration or confusion now simply drifted. Not gone, not forgotten, just quiet. I remembered the tea shop we used to visit too. The tiny one with only 3 tables and a window that always fogged up whenever it rained. You always ordered jasmine green tea, saying it reminded you of childhood mornings when the world still felt easy. I used to pick something different each time: oolong, ginger, chamomile, just to make you laugh at the way I could never commit to a favorite. You don't choose tea. You teased once. You let tea choose you. Those were the kinds of things you said, soft, slightly poetic, a little silly, but meaningful in ways that stuck. I think I loved that about you long before I ever said it out loud. Maybe even before I realized it myself. Tonight, under this streetlight, the rain kept sifting down in silver threads, and memories kept arriving the same way. Not in bursts, but in gentle drizzles. The warmth of your old laughter, float close enough to touch. I could almost hear you saying my name. Again, not the way you said it the last time we argued, tight with hurt, but the way you said it when we shared pastries on rainy afternoons, or when you spotted something you knew I'd find funny. We didn't start with heaviness. We started with ease, with shared umbrellas, small jokes, and the comfort of simply walking the same direction at the end of the day. The love came later, yes, but its foundation was always the quiet stuff, the tiny connections, the unplanned moments tucked into ordinary evenings. Maybe that's why it hurt the way it did, not like a wound, but like a soft unraveling. Because what we had wasn't traumatic enough to break loudly. It only slipped, little by little, like a thread loosening from a sleeve. I shifted slightly. Under the streetlight, feeling the tender weight of the past settle in my chest. Not heavy, just present. Each memory like a drop of rain landing gently on my skin. A part of me smiled as I remembered the way you once accused me of walking too fast. "Slow down," you said, tugging at my sleeve. "You're missing the best part." When I asked what that was, you just gestured around us, at the rain, at the empty street, at the soft glow of shops closing for the night. "This," you said. "These quiet moments no one takes photos of." I didn't know how much I would cling to that later, standing here tonight, under the very same kind of light and almost the same kind of drizzle. I realized that even though things between us changed, the quiet moments stayed. They didn't vanish just because we drifted. They became part of me. The streetlight flickered gently, as if reminding me to breathe. I inhaled the cold, earthy scent of rain and felt a soft ache in my chest. Not sharp, not painful. Just an ache shaped like nostalgia. The kind that doesn't make you wish to go back, only grateful you were there. Even now, waiting for you to arrive, I held those small memories close. They didn't feel like chains. They felt like lanterns, tiny lights I could carry with me into whatever came next. And maybe that was enough. There was a night, long after the umbrella sharing, long after the laughter came easily, when everything between us became quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet that rain brings, but a fragile silence that sat between us like a thin sheet of glass. We didn't break it, not at first. We just walked around it carefully, pretending it wasn't there, pretending we could still hear each other the way we once did. I remember that evening more clearly than I expected to. It was early autumn, and the light outside had the same soft gold that fills the sky just before dusk surrenders to night. We were sitting by a window in your apartment, a place that always smelled a little like dried lavender and warm wood. You had brewed jasmine tea, your favorite, and I had chosen the armchair by the window, watching cars move lazily along the street below. That you were quiet that day, not in the way that meant you were tired, or lost in thought, or simply letting the world slow down. It was a different quiet, a kind that made me look up from my cup more often than usual, searching your expression for something I couldn't name. Your hands kept tugging gently at the sleeves of your sweater, pulling the fabric over your palms, then releasing it again. A small, familiar gesture. But that night, it looked like you were trying to hold on to something slipping away. When I asked if you were all right, you said yes. You smiled a soft, polite smile that didn't reach your eyes and changed the subject. I let you. I told myself you just needed space. That silence didn't always mean something was wrong. That maybe the week had just been long, but something inside me knew that the ease we once carried like a gentle current was slowing, knew that the warmth we used to fall into so naturally had thinned, knew that love, even the quiet kind, could grow tired too. We tried to ignore it. We talked about little things, the new bakery near your work, the movie we kept forgetting to watch together, the way the trees were beginning to blush with autumn colors. It all sounded normal. But beneath every sentence was a pause, a hesitation, A small tremor of something neither of us wanted to confront. I remember the moment it became undeniable. You brought 2 cups of tea to the table, set one gently in front of me, and sat down across from me with a sigh that was barely audible. But I heard it. I felt it. It was the kind of sigh that comes from carrying something too long. You wrapped your hands around your cup, staring into the steam as if the swirling air might form the words you struggled to say. I waited. I didn't rush you. That had always been our unspoken rule. Give each other space to find the right words. But that night, the space felt different. Heavy, stretched. Do you ever feel like? You began, then paused, brushing a loose strand of hair behind your ear. Like we're standing in the same place, but not really together. There was no anger in your voice, no accusation, just quiet confusion and a hint of sadness that made my chest tighten. I remember setting my cup down slowly, carefully, as if making too much noise might break something delicate. I told you I had felt it too, that I didn't know why. That love hadn't disappeared, only the shape of it had shifted, and I didn't know how to hold it anymore. You nodded, almost relieved, and I could see the weight in your eyes soften. Not vanish, but soften. We talked for a long time after that. Softly, honestly. Not like people trying to fix something shattered, but like 2 travelers who realized they had taken different paths without noticing. Nothing dramatic happened. No door slammed. No sharp words. No tears falling in bursts. Instead, our quiet deepened, wrapping gently around the truth that drifting apart doesn't always feel like a storm. Sometimes it feels like fog, slow, subtle, almost tender. In the days that followed, we both really tried to find our way back to the warmth we once shared. We sent longer messages. We made more plans. We reached for each other in ways we hadn't in months. But the effort felt a little like cupping water with our hands. No matter how tightly we held, it kept slipping through the gaps. I think that's when the real sadness settled in. Not because we had failed, but because we knew the softness between us deserved honesty. Deserved an ending that wasn't sharp or cruel. Deserved space to breathe. Tonight, standing under the streetlight, the memory of that quiet evening returned to me with the same softness it had carried then. I could still see the way your eyes glimmered in the dim apartment light, full of gentleness and worry. I could still feel the slow unraveling between us, not painful but inevitable. It struck me now under the golden rain that everything between us had always been gentle. Even the ending, even the drifting. Maybe that was why there was no bitterness in my chest. Only a calm ache, like the echo of a long, deep breath. The rain slid down my umbrella in thin, shimmering lines. Somewhere in the distance, a wind chime rang softly, stirred by a passing breeze. The world felt quiet again, but this time, the quiet didn't scare me. It felt honest, true, a continuation of the quiet we'd shared months ago. Thought about that night, the one where everything became quiet, and realized it hadn't been the beginning of the end. It had been the beginning of understanding. The moment both of us recognized that love sometimes changes shape, no matter how gently we hold it. And in that recognition, there was something tender, something healing. A yellow streetlight glowed above me, warm and steady, casting soft gold across the wet pavement. I breathed in deeply, letting the memory settle into me like a slow falling raindrop. It didn't hurt the way it once did. It didn't close my chest or twist anything inside. It simply lived there quiet, familiar, and soft. Just like you. It was a quiet afternoon when the message came, quiet in the way late autumn afternoons often are, with a soft dimness settling over the room and the sky turning a muted shade of silver. I was sitting by my window, watching the slow drip of water from the roof edge after a brief drizzle, feeling the kind of calm that arrives when the day seems unsure of what it wants to be. Not quite rain, not quite sunshine. Just in between. My phone buzzed once on the table beside me. I didn't check it immediately. I thought it was a news alert or some reminder I had forgotten to delete. But something in the air shifted a faint, familiar pull before I even reached for it. Some instinct told me that the quiet was about to change. When I unlocked my phone, your name appeared on the screen, that it had been a while since you last reached out. Not in an intentional way, not in avoidance, just the natural distance that had grown between us over the past months. A distance neither of us resented, yet neither of us fully understood how to bridge. Seeing your name again was like hearing an old melody drift in from somewhere you didn't expect. A soft ache, a familiar warmth, a gentle tightening of breath. The message was short, almost too short. Can we meet tonight? Just for a moment. Under the streetlight. No explanation. No emojis, no questions. Just a simple request. The words landed in my chest with a strange mixture of calm and unease. Not fear. Nothing between us had ever invited fear, but something close to anticipation tinged with sadness. The kind you feel when you sense a chapter turning even before you read the next line. I reread the message several times, tracing each word with my eyes, feeling their weight settle more deeply each time. Just for a moment. That was what stayed with me most. It wasn't the kind of line you sent when you wanted to talk about something casual. It wasn't the kind you used when asking to catch up or share news. It carried a quiet finality, like someone gently closing a door without making it slam. I typed a reply slowly, making sure my fingers didn't shake. Yes, I'll be there. After sending it, I sat there for a long while, holding my phone loosely, staring out at the damp street below. A few golden leaves drifted down from a tree across the road, spinning lightly before landing on the wet pavement. Everything felt suspended, like the hours ahead were wrapped in a soft, uncertain glow. As the afternoon faded into evening, I moved around my apartment without really thinking, washing a few dishes, folding a blanket, straightening books on a shelf. The small, ordinary movements helped steady my breathing, helped keep my thoughts from spinning too quickly. But no matter what I did, the message kept returning like a gentle tap on my shoulder. Just for a moment. By the time the sky darkened fully, I already knew this meeting would be different from all the others. Not because of what might be said, but because of what had already been felt, quietly, over months of drifting. There are moments in life when you don't need someone to explain what's happening. You can simply feel the shape of the truth settling around you. Before leaving, I paused at my door and inhaled deeply. The familiar scent of my apartment books, faint tea, cool air wrapped around me. I wondered if you were somewhere doing the same thing, preparing yourself, steadying your own heart for whatever this night might bring. The walk to the streetlight was gentle, almost meditative. The rain had returned, falling in thin, whispering lines that brushed against my coat and dampened the edges of my sleeves. Streetlights glowed softly along the path, reflecting in puddles like small, trembling moons. The world felt calm, so calm that my footsteps sounded louder than they were. Even though I walked slowly, the closer I moved toward the place where we had shared so many small memories, the heavier the air seemed to become, not with dread, but with tenderness. Like the atmosphere was holding the moment very carefully, aware that it mattered. I wondered what expression you would have when you saw me. I wondered what words you had held inside, waiting for this night to release them. I wondered whether you rehearsed them, or whether you trusted the rain to carry them gently. Whatever they were, as I turned the final corner, the yellow streetlight came into view, glowing through the rain exactly the way it had in my memory. The sight of it softened something inside me. It felt like stepping into a familiar dream, one we had walked through together many times before. But tonight, it glowed differently. Warmer, somehow. Or maybe it was just me aware of everything the moment carried. I wasn't there yet, but already my breath slowed. I let the light pull me toward it, steady and golden, the way it always had. Even from a distance, I could see the pavement glimmer beneath it, wet and reflective, like a small illuminated pool where truth waited patiently. Halfway there, my phone buzzed again. Another message from you. This time, only 4 words. I'm almost there too. I stopped walking for a moment and lifted my face to the rain. The drops were cool, gentle, almost affectionate as they touched my skin. I closed my eyes and let myself stand there in the quiet glow of anticipation. Not hopeful, not fearful. Just present. There was something beautiful in knowing that both of us were walking toward the same light from different directions. Something soft in imagining your footsteps drawing closer, echoing faintly across familiar streets. Something calming in realizing that, whatever happened tonight, it would unfold gently, because we had always been gentle with one another. As I resumed walking, I could feel the memory of her voice drifting back to me, soft, steady, full of warmth. I remembered your laughter echoing under this very light once, years ago. I remembered how we used to pause here just to breathe for a moment before parting ways. I remembered how you once said this streetlight made the rain look like falling stars. I wondered if you remembered that too. The light grew brighter as I approached, spreading gold across the misty air. The sound of rain deepened, the world growing softer with each step. And then, just at the edge of the glow, I heard its footsteps, careful and familiar, approaching from the opposite direction. I didn't see you yet, but I knew you were almost here. And whatever waited between us under that gentle yellow light, the night was ready to hold it kindly. The first thing I noticed wasn't your face. It was your silhouette softened by the rain, framed by the glow of a distant shop sign behind you, moving slowly toward the circle of yellow light. Each step you took sent small ripples through the puddles at your feet, and somehow that small detail made my breath catch gently in my chest. It had been so long since I'd seen you approach me like that, unhurried, quiet, carrying a softness in your posture that I had always found comforting. As you came closer, the streetlight reached out to meet you. Its warm glow touched the edges of your coat first, then your hair, then finally your face. You paused just at the border of the light, as if giving yourself a moment before stepping fully into it. I could tell you were breathing slowly, the way you always did when collecting thoughts that mattered. Then you stepped forward. And suddenly you were there, standing only a few feet away, close enough for me to see the tiny raindrops clinging to your eyelashes, close enough to recognize the faint tremble of a practiced smile forming on your lips. It wasn't a sad smile. It wasn't forced either. It was the kind of smile people wear when they're holding too many feelings at once, some warm, some uncertain, all true. "Hi," you said softly. Your voice blended with the rain in a way that made my heart tighten gently. It felt like hearing a familiar song again, after believing you had forgotten the melody. I swallowed once, letting the moment settle between us, and answered with a quiet hi of my own. For a long, delicate breath, we simply stood there, neither rushing forward nor stepping back, just letting the presence of the other sink in. It wasn't awkward, just tender, like 2 pages of a book finally touching again after being separated. The rain around us touched the pavement in a soft, rhythmic whisper. Drops slid down your hair and traced gentle paths along your jaw. You brushed one away with your fingertips, and I remembered, suddenly and vividly, all the times I had watched you do that in the past absent-mindedly, gracefully, like someone who lived fully in small gestures. "You look well," you finally said, your voice warm but quiet, as if careful not to disturb the night. "So do you," I replied, and I meant it. We weren't the same as before. That much was clear, but there was something peaceful in seeing. You liked this whole, steady, carrying stories I didn't know, carrying days I hadn't been part of. For a moment, we spoke about the simple things, the weather, the street renovations nearby, the unexpected coldness of the past week. It felt like dipping our hands into familiar water, testing the temperature before sinking deeper. You mentioned a new tea shop you had visited, and I laughed softly, surprised but not really, because you always found new tea shops. You smiled at the sound of my laugh, a real smile this time, small but true. But even as we talked, even as our voices wove gently into the rain, I could feel the real reason you had asked to meet hovering quietly around us. Not pressing, not urgent, just waiting to be acknowledged. Your eyes drifted toward the ground for a moment. You shifted your weight. You exhaled softly through your nose, a breath that almost fogged the cool air between us. And then you looked up, really looked at me, the way you used to when you wanted to say something that mattered. I wasn't sure if I should call, you admitted, but this felt like something I couldn't write in a message. The sincerity in your voice wrapped around me like the warm circle of the streetlight itself. I nodded once, encouraging gently, letting you take your time. You always took your time when something was fragile. I just didn't want things to end the way they did, you continued. Not with silence, not with distance that didn't have a name. Your words were soft but steady. They landed in me like raindrops, cool at first, then warming as they seeped in. I stepped a little closer, letting my umbrella tilt slightly so the rain touched my shoulder. I'm glad you called, I said. I've been thinking about you, not with regret, just with softness. Your expression softened in return, as if the tension you'd been holding slipped gently off your shoulders. Hearing that seemed to make something inside you settle. You took a slow breath, and for the first time that night, your gaze held both ease and sadness, like someone ready to unburden something gently. I guess I just wanted us to meet one last time, you said quietly. Not to fix anything, not to reopen anything, just to say what we didn't get to say, to leave things kind. The rain continued falling around us in soft silver threads. A car passed slowly in the distance, its tires sending ripples through a shallow puddle, then disappearing down a side street. The whole world felt muted, holding space for our words. Kind is good, I whispered. You nodded, a faint glimmer passing through your eyes. The streetlight reflected gently in them, turning them gold for a moment. And in that brief glow, I could see the same person you once were, the same warmth, the same quiet sincerity, the same way of holding emotions like delicate glass. I don't want to lose the memories, you said. Even if we're not what we used to be, I want to keep them warm, not painful. Hearing that made something inside my chest loosen, like a soft knot finally unwinding. Because that was exactly what I had wanted too. We can keep them, I said, gently, without expecting them to be anything more. You let out a slow breath that fogged the air between us, and when you smiled, it was with gratitude, not for the past, but for this moment here, under the golden rain. Standing there, in the warm circle of the streetlight, it felt like something unspoken had finally found a place to rest. Like a small, quiet truth had finally been freed into the night. You lifted your gaze, meeting mine again, and whispered, "Thank you for coming." And I whispered back, "I wouldn't have been anywhere else." For a brief moment, neither of us spoke. We simply stood there, breathing in the same cool air, listening to the soft rain falling around us. The streetlight wrapped both of us in its warm gold, making the night feel smaller, gentler, like it was holding us in the palm of its hand. And in that small space of quiet, I realized how long it had been since I'd seen your eyes up close, how familiar they still looked, yet how different the expression behind them had become. You shifted slightly, brushing a few damp strands of hair away from your forehead. The raindrops clung stubbornly to your eyelashes, catching the yellow light like tiny beads of glass. When you blinked, they scattered down your cheeks, not tears, just rain. But something about the sight made my chest ache softly. I wasn't sure how this would feel, you admitted, your voice barely above a whisper. Seeing you again, standing here, how does it feel? I asked gently. You took a slow breath, letting your gaze drift past me for a moment, watching the rain blur the outlines of buildings and trees. Then your eyes returned to mine, steadier this time. Familiar, you said, but also distant in a peaceful way, like I'm looking at someone I once knew very deeply, but differently now. It was an honest answer, and honesty had always been your quiet strength. I nodded, absorbing your words the way the ground absorbed the falling rain slowly, fully, without resistance. I know what you mean, I said. It feels like meeting a memory, but one that's still alive. A small, almost surprised smile touched your lips. Not bright, not sharp, just soft. The kind of smile that says, yes, that's exactly it. You glanced down at your hands, rubbing your palms together for warmth. The rain had soaked through your sleeves, darkening the fabric. Without thinking, I stepped a little closer and tilted my umbrella so it covered more of you. You looked up at me, and for a moment, the expression in your eyes was the same one I remembered from long ago when the world between us was simple, full of gentle beginnings. You always do that, you murmured. Do what? Move a little closer when I'm cold. I felt a small warmth bloom in my chest. Old habits, I said softly. You let out a quiet laugh, barely a breath. Really? But it was enough to melt the air between us a little further. You looked up toward the street lamp, watching the rain glide down the glass of the light fixture above us. The droplets sparkled briefly before falling into the golden circle around our feet. It's strange, you continued. I thought I'd come here feeling heavy, but I don't. Not really. I feel calm, more than I expected. Me too. You tucked a damp lock of hair behind your ear, then hesitated before speaking again. I think a part of me was afraid you'd be angry. Or hurt. I'm neither, I said truthfully. It took time, but I'm not. You studied my face for a moment, searching gently, like someone reading a familiar page with new eyes. Whatever you saw there must have eased something inside you, because your shoulders relaxed a little more. I was afraid, you admitted, because hurting you was the last thing I ever wanted. Even when things became difficult, even when we didn't understand each other anymore. I never wanted harm. I let those words sit softly between us before answering. You didn't harm me. Life just shifted, and we shifted with it. You nodded slowly, the rain tracing quiet lines down your cheeks again. I'm glad you see it that way. For a moment, we simply listened to the rain, to the distant hum of a streetcar, to the soft thud of our own hearts finding a quieter rhythm. It felt like the night was giving us permission to breathe, to let truth settle without rushing. Do you remember, you asked suddenly, the last time we stood here together? I did, vividly. A different season, a different kind of rain. A night when our laughter had echoed through this very street as we shared a pastry from the bakery around the corner because they were closing and sold it to us for half price. You had powdered sugar on your sleeve and insisted it was snow. I teased you for it. You teased me back. We were bright then. Warm. Yes, I said softly. I remember. You exhaled in a way that sounded almost like a soft chuckle. We were so different then. Everyone is different in old memories, I replied. That's what makes them glow. You looked at me with an expression that mixed gratitude and something deeper, something like recognition. You always had a way of saying things I didn't know I needed to hear. You whispered, and you always understood the things I didn't say. For a heartbeat, silence returned. But this silence wasn't heavy or fragile. It was full, gentle, like the pause after a page is turned. You stepped a little closer, just enough that I could see the faint tremble in your breath from the cold. "I'm glad we could meet like this," you said quietly. "Not as people trying to hold on, just as people, remembering with kindness. So am I." The streetlight flickered softly above us, as if nodding in agreement. Your eyes lifted to it, and in that moment, the light caught them in a way that made them seem warmer, almost golden themselves. "I was afraid this would feel like an ending," you whispered. "But it doesn't. What does it feel like?" I asked. You thought for a long moment, letting your fingers trace the handle of your umbrella, letting the rain fill the silence with its quiet rhythm. "It feels," you said slowly, "like breathing out after holding my breath for too long." I felt something loosen in me, to a gentle untying of a knot I didn't realize I still carried. Finally, you met my eyes again. "Thank you," you said. "Not for coming, for everything before that." The words were soft, true. They landed in me like a warm hand resting briefly on my heart. "And thank you," I replied, "for everything too." We stood there, two people who once shared a life, now sharing a moment. No longing, no regret, just gentle recognition under a yellow streetlight in the rain dot. And in that moment, seeing you, really seeing you, I realized how beautiful it was that something once so close could now stand gently at arm's length without pain. A different kind of closeness, a softer one built on release, not holding. The rain softened around us as if listening, falling in a gentler rhythm that matched the quiet breath between our words. Standing there beneath the glow of the streetlight, I could feel the night settling into a kind of stillness not empty, but tender. The kind of stillness where every small sound feels meaningful. The steady drizzle, the soft hum of the lamp, the faint rustle of wet leaves in a nearby gutter. Even the space between us seemed to hum with a gentle, unspoken understanding. You shifted slightly, adjusting your umbrella, and your eyes flicked toward mine with a familiar softness. Not longing, just recognition. A kind of "I remember you," without needing to say it out loud. And then you exhaled slow, quiet, the kind of breath people take when they're preparing to step carefully into something fragile. "I didn't know how to start this conversation," you admitted, giving a small half laugh that blended into the sound of the rain. "I thought about rehearsing something, but everything I came up with sounded wrong." "I'm glad you didn't rehearse," I said gently. "This feels better, honest." You nodded, eyes lowering for a moment. "Honest," you repeated softly, as if testing the word. "That's what I want tonight to be, just honest." We fell into a moment of silence again, but not the uneasy kind that once stretched between us. This silence felt warm, like an old blanket wrapped around both of us. You took a small step to the side, letting your umbrella tilt slightly so it caught the light differently. Droplets slid down its surface in silver trails. "I was thinking," you continued, "about how we used to talk, before everything got complicated. Do you remember how our conversations felt back then?" "Like breathing," I said. The answer came out before I could think about it. You looked up at me, and a soft glow passed through your expression. "Exactly," you whispered. "Like breathing." Your voice wove into the rain, gentle and warm. "I miss that." "I do too," I admitted. You made a quiet sound, something between a sigh and a hum, and glanced toward the puddles, forming small mirrors at our feet. "We used to tell each other the smallest things," you said, "like what we dreamed about, or the shape of a cloud we saw, or how the tea tasted that day." I smiled at the memory. "You always said jasmine smelled like home." Your eyes softened. "And you always said oolong tasted like rain." You said it like a secret you had carried with you, even after all this time. Hearing it again felt like opening a drawer I'd forgotten existed, full of tiny objects that once meant everything. We were good at small things, you murmured. Really good. We were, I said. You shifted again, and this time you stepped a little closer, not enough to touch, but enough for the air between us to feel warmer. I know the big things changed, you said, and I know we can't go back to what we were. But the small things, the kindness, the gentleness, I don't want those to disappear. They don't have to, I replied. You smiled, a quiet, grateful smile. I hope not. The rain thickened slightly, forming a soft curtain around us. You lifted your face toward it, letting a few cool drops land on your skin. It reminded me so vividly of the way you used to pause beneath sudden showers, eyes closed, breathing in the scent of wet earth. You lowered your gaze again and studied me with a calm, steady look. There's something I want to ask, you said. Go ahead. When you think of us now, what do you feel? Honestly, your voice didn't tremble, but there was a gentleness in it that made me want to choose my words carefully, with the same softness you're offering. I feel gratitude, I said slowly, for everything that shaped us, for everything we learned, for the way we once held each other's lives gently, and for the fact that we can stand here tonight without bitterness. You looked down, blinking as rain gathered at the tips of your lashes again. That means more to me than you know. What about you? I asked, how do you feel? You took a deep breath, the kind that fills the chest and releases the weight of unsaid things. I feel peaceful, you said, and a little sad, but not in a bad way. More like? You paused, searching for a word. More like nostalgia that doesn't hurt. That's a good kind, I murmured. The best kind, you echoed softly. Another silence fell, and this one felt like the universe was giving us room to breathe, to stand on the edge of what had been and what would come next. Your eyes wandered down the street as if tracing the path we had walked together countless times. Then you turned back to me with an expression that was almost shy. Do you remember that night? You said, when we sat by the river and just talked for hours? Which night? I asked, smiling. We did that a lot. The one where the lights reflected on the water like tiny lanterns, you said. And you told me about that dream you kept having, the one where the rain was falling in slow motion, and you were walking toward a light you couldn't quite reach. I remembered. I remembered every detail. You said the light felt like someone waiting, you continued softly. Someone patient. Someone safe. You looked up at the streetlight above us, its warm gold halo glowing through the mist. I always hoped, you whispered, that the light you were walking toward was me. Your words hung in the air, delicate as a raindrop balancing on a leaf. Not heavy, not painful, just true. And for a long time, I said quietly, it was. Your breath hitched slightly, not with pain, but with a soft acceptance. The kind that comes when people finally name something they've carried silently for years. Thank you, you whispered. For what? For letting it be me once. The rain grew softer again, almost like it was bowing its head to the tenderness between us. You met my eyes with a clarity I hadn't seen in a long time. And thank you, you added, for letting it be something else now, for letting both of us grow. We stood there under the golden rain, two people who once loved deeply, now speaking gently in the remnants of that love. There was no longing to reclaim the past, only gratitude, only softness. Only the rain, the streetlight, and the simple truth that sometimes the quietest conversations are the ones that heal. The rain gathered itself into a soft whisper around us, as if encouraging the truth to come forward without fear. It was the kind of rain that blurred the edges of the world just enough to make everything feel intimate, protected. Standing there beneath the golden lamp, you took another careful breath, the kind that meant you were about to say something real, something you had carried for longer than you meant to. Your fingers tightened briefly around the handle of your umbrella before loosening again. "There's something I've wanted to tell you," you said quietly, "for a long time. But I didn't know if saying it would help or make things harder." I waited, not pushing, letting the moment unfurl in its own rhythm. You had always been someone who needed space to soften your thoughts before letting them go. "You don't have to say it if it hurts," I murmured. "It doesn't hurt," you replied, meeting my eyes. "That's why I want to say it." I nodded once, encouraging gently. The streetlight flickered above us, just slightly, as if leaning in too. You exhaled. "I'm sorry. For the quiet moments I didn't hold you well. For the times I drifted when you didn't know why. For the way my confusion made you feel uncertain." Your voice trembled not with sadness, but with sincerity. "You didn't deserve that." The apology didn't hit like a sharp arrow. It landed softly, like a small feather settling onto water. I felt it ripple through me, not painfully, but tenderly. "You don't need to apologize," I said. "We were both learning, both becoming different versions of ourselves." "But I want to," you whispered, lowering your gaze, "because even gentle endings can leave shadows. And I don't want those shadows to stay with you." Your words made something warm bloom deep inside me, a warmth shaped like closure, shaped like gratitude, shaped like the quiet kind of love that remains even after everything else changes. I stepped a little closer, not enough to erase the distance between us, but enough to let the warmth of the streetlight hold us both. "I was confused too," I confessed. "There were moments I didn't understand you, times I didn't understand myself. And I'm sorry, too, for the things I didn't know how to say then." You looked up at me again, and for a moment, your eyes glimmered with both relief and softness. "Thank you," you said. A gentle gust of wind passed between us, carrying the scent of wet pavement and faint jasmine from somewhere down the street. You pulled your coat tighter around you, and I tilted my umbrella a bit more to shelter both of us from the shifting rain. The circle of light around our feet pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. "When I think about us," you continued, voice barely above the rain, "I don't think about the mistakes. I think about how safe it felt, how quiet and real it was. I think about how you always listened, even when I didn't know what I was trying to say." I felt a small ache rise in my chest, not painful, but tender. "And I think about how you always softened the world," I said. "How you made ordinary days feel like memories while they were happening." Your lips parted slightly, the beginning of a smile forming before fading into something more solemn. "I guess we were meant to be a chapter," you whispered. "Not the whole book, but an important part of it." "A beautiful chapter," I replied. You swallowed gently, as if steadying yourself. "There were things I wanted to hold on to," you admitted. "Your patience, the way you understood quiet, the way you made me feel seen. And there were things I had to let go of," I said softly. "My fear of losing what we had, my fear of change. Did it get easier?" You asked. "Yes," I said honestly. "Slowly, like the rain tonight. Not sudden, not harsh, just gradually softening everything I didn't know how to soften on my own." Your shoulders relaxed, your breath gentled. "I'm glad," you said. Truly. We shared another moment of silence, this one woven from all the things we had finally allowed ourselves to say. The unsaid things no longer felt heavy. They drifted into the rain, dissolving into the night like small, tired birds finally finding rest. "Do you ever wonder?" you asked quietly. "What would have happened if we'd tried harder? Or talked sooner? Or held each other a little tighter?" I smiled not out of sadness, but out of understanding. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but wondering doesn't hurt anymore." "Me neither," you said. "Because we tried," I continued. "We really did. And some things aren't meant to be saved. They're meant to be cherished." Your eyes softened at the word cherished, and you repeated it under your breath, as though savoring it. I'm thankful, you whispered. For what? For every version of us, you said. The beginning, the middle, even the ending. I nodded. Me too. The rain thickened briefly, sending tiny silver rivers down our umbrellas, but neither of us moved. We simply watched the droplets gather at the edges before falling gracefully to the ground. The puddles around our feet expanded, reflecting the light in shimmering gold ripples. Then, slowly, you reached out not to touch me, but to let your fingers hover just slightly closer, as if acknowledging the invisible thread that once connected us. I want you to know something, you said. What is it? Your voice softened to the quietest whisper. Nothing between us was wasted. The words lingered in the air like a warm breath on glass, fading gently, but leaving an imprint behind. My chest tightened, but only in the most tender way. Nothing, I echoed softly. The rain around us slowed again, settling into a steady hush. You looked up, meeting my eyes with a clarity that felt like the final turning of a page. And I needed to say that. You added, because it's the truth, and because you deserve to hear it. I felt my heartbeat steady in my chest. Thank you, I whispered. We stood there beneath the warm glow, not holding on, not releasing, simply letting the truth rest between us like a small, bright lantern. Soft, honest, complete. The rain deepened into a soft chorus around us, each drop a tiny note that blended into a calm, steady rhythm. It felt as though the world had pulled a thin veil over itself, muffling the noise of the city, leaving only this small golden circle for the two of us to stand in. The puddles at our feet rippled gently whenever a drop of rain found them, turning the reflections of the streetlight into trembling rings of light. You glanced up toward the lamp, letting your eyes follow the rain as it fell through the warm glow. Do you hear it? You whispered. The way the rain sounds tonight, it's different. I listened. The rain wasn't heavy enough to roar or patter sharply. It was soft, almost fragile, as if falling carefully, so as not to disturb what was happening under the yellow light. It's gentle, I said. Like it understands, you replied. I smiled at the thought. Rain had always been your metaphor. For softness, for healing, for moments that didn't know what to be except honest. You used to say rain could take away old dust. I reminded you. You let out a quiet breath, the kind that carried both memory and acceptance. Maybe that's what tonight is, you said. Just letting everything wash clean. You shifted your weight slightly, turning your face a little toward me. The glow of the streetlight softened the angles of your features, highlighting the curve of your cheek, the slope of your nose, the gentle shape of your mouth. And for a moment, I felt the familiar ache of knowing someone deeply, paired with a different kind of calm that comes from releasing them. What else is on your mind? I asked, keeping my voice low. You hesitated. Not out of fear, just care. You had always been careful with words that held weight. I've been thinking, you began slowly, about the things we never said. Not the big things, those we said, eventually. But the small things, the soft truths? Like what? I prompted gently. You looked down at your hands. A bead of rain rolled along your knuckle, paused at the edge of your finger, then fell to the pavement. Like how I would think of you whenever it rained, you said, even after we drifted, even when we didn't talk anymore. Something warm stirred in my chest. I thought of you too, I admitted, more often than I expected. You nodded slowly, almost shyly. I guess some connections don't disappear. They just change shapes. The rain around us shimmered, faintly in the lamplight, like a curtain made of soft silver threads. You stepped a little closer to the edge of the golden circle, watching how the light caught the raindrops falling around your umbrella. There's something I realized. You said, voice steady but quiet. Looking back, We didn't fall apart because of anything dramatic. We just stopped walking at the same pace. Your words settled gently in the air between us. They didn't sting. They didn't break anything. They simply fit like the last piece of a puzzle we both held on to without knowing where it belonged. That happens sometimes, I said. Two people moving through the same world, but drifting into different rhythms. Yes, you murmured. And I think I tried to pretend we were still moving in sync. But deep down, I knew we weren't. And that scared me. I met your eyes. Me too. The rain thickened momentarily, brushing against our coats in soft bursts before settling back into its steady whisper. You watched the droplets trail down the fabric of your sleeve with a thoughtful expression. I used to think drifting meant failing, you said, but now I think it just means we grew in different directions. And maybe that was okay. It is okay, I said gently. We didn't lose anything. We just changed. Your eyes lifted again, and the look in them was softer, clearer than it had been earlier tonight. I didn't want our story to end with confusion, you said, or with silence. I wanted it to end with honesty. And kindness, I added. And kindness. You agreed. Another quiet moment passed, and in that stillness, the rain sounded. Almost like a soft applause, as if the night itself was acknowledging the truth we had finally reached. After a while, you spoke again. There's something else I want to say. I nodded, giving you the space to continue. Your next words came slowly, tenderly. I'm grateful for your patience, for the way you listened, for the way you never made me feel small. I carried that with me, even after we went our separate ways. You glanced away for a moment, then back again. And I hope you know, I always tried to give you the same softness, even when I didn't know how. You did, I said quietly, more than you realize. The streetlight flickered, then steadied again. You watched it with a thoughtful expression, as though the light itself carried meaning. I think I wanted, you began, then paused. I wanted to know that you don't resent me, that you're okay, really okay. I took a slow breath, feeling the honesty rise to the surface as naturally as the rain around us. I don't resent you, I said. I carry no bitterness, just warmth, just memories that feel soft now. And yes, I'm okay. Your shoulders lowered as if a quiet weight had lifted. Thank you, you said. I needed to hear that more than I realized. And I needed to say it, I replied. We stood together in the golden circle, watching the rain draw silver paths across the pavement. The soft glow above us turned each drop into a fleeting spark. Nothing felt unfinished anymore. Nothing felt sharp, just gentle. Truth, just released, just the soft understanding that some stories don't have to last forever to be beautiful. They only need to be held kindly. You met my eyes one last time in that moment of softness and said, with a voice that felt like a warm breeze through a quiet window, we did our best. And I answered, yes, we did. For a moment, after those words, we did our best, the world seemed to pause. Not in a dramatic way, but gently, like a breath held between raindrops. The streetlight glowed steadily above us, casting a warm golden pool around our feet. And the rain continued its soft descent, as if giving us privacy, as if cushioning the space where truth had just landed. You looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen in a long time. Not longing, not regret, just a kind of peaceful knowing. The kind that rises only when two people finally allow themselves to stand on honest ground without fear of breaking anything. I didn't think, you said quietly, that saying everything out loud would feel this. Calm. It feels like setting something down, I replied. Something we've both carried longer than we meant to. You nodded slowly. Yes, exactly like that. Your umbrella shook slightly as you adjusted your grip, sending a scatter of droplets to the ground. Then you stepped half a pace closer, not enough to blur the new distance we had learned to hold, but enough that I could see the way your eyes reflected the streetlight, turning the warm gold into something softer, something entirely yours. I think, you said, voice gentle, that I needed tonight more than I admitted to myself. Not to reopen anything, not to ask for anything, just to breathe with someone who once knew me well. I'm glad you came, I said. You gave a small laugh under your breath. I almost didn't, you confessed. I walked halfway here, then turned back, then changed my mind again. Twice. I smiled. I'm glad the final decision was calm. So am I. The rain deepened again, not in force, but in presence. Each drop seemed louder in the quiet air, more intentional, as if urging us gently toward the next truth, waiting to be spoken. After a moment, you looked down at the wet pavement, where golden reflections rippled with each raindrop. There's something else I've been thinking about, you said softly. Not about us. About life, I guess. Tell me. You breathed in carefully, your chest rising just a little under your damp coat. I used to think that love failing meant we had failed, that if a relationship didn't last forever, then it wasn't real or deep enough. But now I don't believe that anymore. What changed? You lifted your gaze again slowly, thoughtfully. I realized that endings aren't always heartbreak. Sometimes they're growth. Sometimes they're two people stepping into new versions of themselves. Versions they couldn't become if they'd stayed where they were. Your words floated through the rain like small lanterns drifting across quiet water, warm, gentle, illuminating. I think we helped each other grow. I said, I know we did. You answered that the rain gathered on your eyelashes again, but you didn't brush it away this time. You let it stay, let it fall. There was a time, you continued, when I wished we could go back to those warm, easy days. But now I see we're not meant to live in memory. Memory is a place to visit, not to stay. And we visited tonight, I said softly. And it was enough, you whispered. A breeze wandered down the street, carrying the scent of rain-soaked leaves. Somewhere far off, a car turned a corner, its headlights scattering across the mist. The city felt distant, hushed, as if all the ordinary noise had stepped aside to make room for this moment. You know, you said after a pause, I used to imagine what our last conversation would be like. Back when things were hard, I thought it would be sadder, heavier. And now? Your smile was soft, almost shy. Now it feels gentle, like a chapter closing itself, without either of us forcing it. Chapters do that sometimes, I murmured. When the story is ready. You nodded, letting the meaning of that settle into the golden air around us. It's strange, you said quietly. We're standing in the same place we used to meet, but the feeling is different, softer, lighter. You glanced at me with eyes that held no regrets. I think this is what healing feels like. The word healing hovered between us like a small, glowing ember, warm, calming, true. I'm glad we reached this place, I said. Me too, you whispered. More than you know. Another silence fell, but it wasn't empty. It was full of everything we had finally released, everything we had acknowledged, everything we would now carry forward without weight. Do you know what I wish for you? You asked suddenly, your voice barely above the rain. What? I hope, you said, that someone someday stands with you under a streetlight, maybe a different one, maybe on a different rainy night, and makes you feel the kind of peace you always tried to give me. My breath stilled for a moment, not from hurt, but from the softness of the wish. And I hope, I said in return, that you find someone who understands your quiet the way I did, someone who knows how to listen to your heart even when you're silent. Your eyes glistened gently, not with tears, but with something like acceptance. That's a good wish, you said. It's the least we can give each other. I answered. A gust of wind swept through, fluttering your hair, sending a soft shiver through your coat. You stepped slightly farther beneath my umbrella, instinctively, just like you used to. I held it steady without thinking. Old habits, gentle ones that didn't hurt to remember. We should talk about the truth, you said quietly. The truth that we both already know. I nodded, waiting. This is goodbye, you continued. Not in a sad way. Not in a dramatic way, just a real one. Yes, I said. A gentle goodbye. One that doesn't close the heart, you added. One that opens it. I said. The rain around us softened even further, becoming almost like mist. The streetlight hummed faintly. The golden circle around our feet flickered with quiet warmth. And then, with a breath as soft as a falling leaf, you said the words that would settle into the night like the final echo of a song. Thank you for walking with me as far as you did. I felt my heart warm steady. And thank you, I whispered, for the part of the path we shared. The rain continued falling, but something inside the moment shifted lightly, peacefully like a page turning itself that our goodbye had begun. And it was beautiful. Our goodbye didn't happen all at once. It unfolded the way soft rain does, drop by drop, breath by breath, so quietly that you almost don't notice when the world has changed. We didn't step backward or turn away immediately. Instead, we stayed where we were, letting the moment linger like a gentle echo. The rain thickened slightly, brushing against our coats with a muted patter, forming tiny silver constellations along the fabric. And beneath the streetlight, the warm golden glow wrapped around us, as if encouraging us to speak the last words with care. You shifted your umbrella a little, letting its edge tilt so that a thin ribbon of rain fell between us. It's strange, you murmured, glancing up at the lamp. The last time we stood here, I thought everything was ending. But tonight, it feels like something is settling, not breaking. I feel that too, I said. Your eyes softened. I used to think endings had to hurt. And now? I asked gently. Now, you whispered, I realize endings can be soft. They can be gentle, like rain fading into mist. We stood quietly for a moment, letting the words breathe. The air smelled of wet stone and faint jasmine drifting from somewhere down the block. The puddles at our feet shivered with each raindrop, sending golden ripples outward in slow circles. You looked at me again, your eyes reflecting both the light above us and the sincerity inside you. I wanted to meet here tonight, you said softly, because this was always the place where we understood each other best. Something about the rain, the quiet, the light. You paused, searching for the right words. It always made things feel honest. It still does, I whispered. A faint smile crossed your lips, fragile, wistful, but grateful. You tucked a loose strand of damp hair behind your ear and took in a slow breath. I think, you said, that this is where our last words should be. Not spoken in frustration, not through a phone, but here, with the rain to catch them. I nodded. I'm listening. Your next breath trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of what you were finally ready to release. I want you to know, you said, that you were good to me, even in the moments when things were complicated, even in the moments when we didn't understand each other. You swallowed gently. You gave me kindness when I couldn't always give it back. You gave me just as much, I answered. Maybe more. You shook your head gently. Maybe not always. Then your gaze softened even further. But I tried. I hope you know I tried. I know, I said. I always knew. The rain deepened for a moment, a soft flutter against our umbrellas, like the sky exhaling. You looked upward as if listening to its rhythm. I used to imagine our final conversation would be filled with regret, you said. or sadness. But this, you let the word drift. This feels like a warm light being turned off slowly. Not suddenly, just gently dimming until only the glow remains. That's enough, I said quietly. That's more than enough. Your gaze returned to mine. I'm glad we could arrive here. In this way, without hurting each other. It means everything, I replied. You took a small step backward, not to leave, but to find your balance as your emotions settled. The golden circle between us stretched slightly, glowing like a soft halo on the wet pavement. There was something else in your eyes, something you hadn't spoken yet. I could feel it hovering gently between us, waiting for the right moment to land. What is it? I asked. You hesitated, a tender hesitation, careful and thoughtful. You began. I want you to be happy. Truly. Not the polite kind of happy we tell people we're fine with. The real kind. The kind that makes you breathe easier. The kind that feels steady. Your words warmed me more deeply than the streetlight ever could. I want that for you too, I said. You smiled, small, true, touched with melancholy, but not weighed down by it. I think we both will be, you whispered. Someday, in different places, under different lights. We fell into another moment of quiet, letting the truth settle. The rain gentled again, almost pausing as if listening. Can I tell you something? You asked. Anything, I said. I'm not sad anymore, you whispered. Not about us. Not about what we couldn't hold. There was a time I was, but now I just feel grateful that we knew how to be good to each other, even at the end. Hearing that felt like a soft hand resting against my heart. Me too. I'm grateful for all of it. Your lips curved into a bittersweet smile. I guess this is what kindness looks like, you murmured, even after love changes. And this, I gestured lightly to the moment around us. This is what goodbye looks like. The gentle kind. You nodded. The kind that leaves the door open not to return, but to let the light out. The rain deepened slightly, turning the puddles into shimmering gold mirrors. You reached out just a little bit, not touching me, but letting your presence lean closer, as if offering a final warmth. I'm glad we met, you said softly. I'm glad we loved. I answered. And I'm glad we grew, you added. A warmth spread slowly through my chest. We did. Your eyes lifted to the streetlight one more time, watching the glow shimmer through the rain. Our last words, you whispered, almost to yourself, dissolving into the sound of rain and yellow light. You paused, letting the sentence settle. It feels right. It does, I whispered. You took in one more slow, steady breath, deep enough to gather everything you needed to release. Gentle enough not to disturb the calm between us. Goodbye, you said at last. Your voice so soft, it was almost part of the rain. I felt my heart soften in the quiet glow. Goodbye, I whispered. Our last words didn't echo. They didn't linger painfully. They dissolved, exactly as you said, into the rain, into the warm halo of the streetlight, into the night that held us gently until the moment passed. And in the fading golden glow, there was no sorrow, only peace. When your goodbye drifted into the rain, you didn't walk away immediately. Neither did I. We stayed there, suspended in the warm circle of the streetlight, as if time itself had paused to give us a softer landing. The world felt incredibly still, just the quiet hum of the lamp, the gentle tapping of raindrops, the faint glow of distant windows. Even the air seemed to hold its breath around us. You looked down at your shoes, watching the ripples form in the shallow puddles at your feet. It's strange, you murmured, how peaceful this feels. Your voice was delicate, almost uncertain, as if you were surprised by the truth in it. It does feel peaceful, I said, like something has come full circle. You nodded, slow, thoughtful. I think I expected to cry, you admitted, or to feel some sharp ache. But instead, you lifted your head, meeting my eyes. I feel calm, really calm. That's because we didn't break, I said gently. We just changed. Your lips curved into a soft, grateful smile. Yes, changed. You whispered the word as though it tasted gentle on your tongue. There was a moment when you swayed slightly on your feet, the subtle notion revealing the quiet exhaustion that always follows emotional release. Not a heavy exhaustion, just the kind that comes after telling the truth for the first time in a long while. I instinctively shifted my umbrella to shield you better from the rain. You noticed the gesture, and your eyes softened the way they used to when you felt seen without having to ask. You're still doing that, you said softly. Doing what? Taking care of the small things. A warmth stirred in my chest, not romantic, not longing, just familiar. A kind of warmth that loved what we had been and accepted what we no longer were. It's just a habit, I said. A kind one, you replied. The streetlight flickered once, just a tiny quiver in the bulb before steadying again. It cast long reflections across the rain-slick pavement, turning every surface into a faint shimmer of gold. You looked up at it, your expression distant for a moment, as if tracing the shape of the memories we'd just laid to rest. I never told you this, you said, but this streetlight, it was always my favorite part of our walks. Something about the glow, the way it felt warm, even on the coldest nights. I know, I said. You always slowed down when we passed it. Did I? You asked, surprised. Every time. You let out a breath, a soft puff of air that mixed with the mist between us. I think maybe I was always hoping we'd stop here, that we'd share moments the way we used to, that something gentle would happen. And something did, I said. Tonight, your eyes flickered with something warm. Yes, you whispered. Tonight, we let the quiet stretch again, filling it with the gentle rhythm of the rain. There was no hurry. The night wasn't pushing us forward or pulling us back. It simply existed with us, soft, patient, tender. Do you think we'll remember tonight the same way? You asked suddenly. Maybe, I said. Or maybe our memories will shape themselves differently. But I think the feeling will stay the same. What feeling? You asked. Peace, I said simply. You took another slow breath, the kind that feels like the lungs finally have room again. It feels like breathing easier, you said. Like I've let go of something I didn't even know I was holding so tightly. That's healing, I said. You smiled at that word, a small, luminous smile. It glowed more brightly than the lamp above us. I'm glad, you whispered. I'm glad we healed. The rain thickened suddenly, creating a soft fluttering sound all around us. You lifted your umbrella higher, shielding your hair from the growing drizzle. But then you lowered it again, letting the cool drops gather at the ends of your lashes. It's okay, you said. A little rain feels right. It does, I agreed. You looked toward the far end of the street, where the dim outline of a bus stop glowed faintly. I could sense the shift, the quiet moment when goodbye becomes movement. When the heart knows the conversation is complete, I should go soon, you said gently. Without sadness, I know. You hesitated not out of conflict, but out of a desire to savor the last few seconds of softness. Will you stay here a little while after I leave? You asked. Yes? Good, your smile warmed. I like the idea of you standing here for a bit longer. Not for me, just to breathe. I will, I said. You stepped backward once, your shoes making a tiny splash in the puddle behind you. The sound echoed gently, like a quiet punctuation mark. You paused again. Then you said something so soft, so honest, that it made the night feel sacred. Please take care of yourself. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't a sadness. It was a blessing. "I will," I whispered. "And you too." A soft wind drifted between us, carrying the scent of wet leaves and the faint sweetness of rain-kissed flowers. You closed your eyes for a heartbeat, soaking in the moment one last time. Then you opened them again, stepped just a little farther back, and said the final words that seemed to dissolve into the lamp's glow. "Good night." The simplest word, the gentlest ending. "Good night," I whispered. You turned slowly, unhurried, graceful, and began to walk away. The rain caught in the air around you, turning your silhouette into a moving watercolor. Each step you took seemed to melt into the golden pavement, becoming softer, smaller, until all that remained was the rhythmic whisper of your footsteps fading into the night. I stayed exactly where I was, just as you had asked, standing alone under the warm halo of the streetlight, feeling the night settle around me like a soft blanket, feeling something inside me quiet, feeling something else finally let go. You were gone, but the peace lingered. For a while after you left, I simply stood there, listening to the soft retreat of your footsteps becoming part of the rain. They faded gently, no sharpness, no suddenness, just a slow dissolving into the night, like everything else that had happened under this warm yellow light. When the sound finally disappeared completely, the quiet around me deepened in a way that felt almost sacred. The kind of quiet that doesn't make you feel alone, but held. The circle of the streetlight seemed wider now. Or maybe it was just the way I breathed slower, deeper, with the kind of ease that only arrives after too many tangled emotions have finally loosened their grip. I looked up at the lamp, watching the glow catch each falling drop, turning them into tiny strands of gold. It reminded me of the night sky on certain rainy evenings, when the world feels small and gentle enough to fit into the palm of your hand. The rain began to lighten again, shifting into that misty drizzle that always feels like a soft whisper against the skin. I lowered my umbrella slightly, letting a few drops gather on my face. They were cool but not cold, refreshing in a way that made my shoulders relax. You were gone, but your presence lingered not as a weight, but as a warmth in my chest, a memory settling into a comfortable place. I felt no urge to call after you, no desire to rewind anything, just a quiet gratitude for what had unfolded between us. I started walking slowly, not heading anywhere in particular, just letting my feet follow the soft glow of the street. The pavement shone like liquid gold beneath each lamp, reflecting the misty air in trembling patterns. There was something soothing in the way the light wavered with every raindrop, like the world was breathing too. Every few steps, a small memory surfaced, not sharp, not painful, just drifting through me like a warm breeze. The way you used to straighten my collar without thinking. The way we paused at crosswalks to admire the fog rolling in. The way your laughter once echoed off damp walls, light and unburdened. The way you always noticed small things, the pattern of raindrops on a window, the smell of tea someone brewed across the street. Those memories didn't pull me backward. They walked beside me. Soft, kind doubt. As I continued down the street, I passed familiar places we used to stop by. The old bakery with its dim sign flickering in the rain. The tiny tea shop with the fogged windows. The bus stop bench where you once rested your head on my shoulder after a long day. Nothing hurt. Instead, everything felt wrapped in a gentle melancholy. Sweet kind, the kind that hums softly in the background of a quiet heart. A gust of wind passed through the street, shaking droplets from the branches above me. I paused beneath one of the trees, watching how the leaves shivered, sending tiny showers of rain falling in a soft cascade. The world smelled like earth, rain, and distant jasmine. A smell that always reminded me of transitions, endings that quietly become beginnings. A car rolled by slowly, its headlights casting a soft white beam across the wet pavement. In the reflection, I saw myself a lone figure in the rain, and somehow the sight didn't feel lonely. Just real, honest. A person standing at the edge of one chapter and the beginning of something new. As I walked, I caught sight of a small cafe window where warm light spilled onto the street. Inside, two people sat facing each other, talking quietly over steaming mugs. I watched them for a moment, their gentle gestures, the easy rhythm of their conversation, and instead of longing, I felt a small, steady hope rise inside me. A hope that one day I might sit like that again with someone who understood mine. Quiet, who listened to the pauses between my words, who treated my heart with the same gentleness I tried to carry tonight. Not soon, not urgently, just someday. The rain eased even more, settling into a faint mist, the kind that barely touched the skin but made the entire world feel softer. I walked past the intersection where you and I used to part ways, where you'd always glance back once before turning the corner. Tonight, out of habit, I looked back too, not because I expected you to be there, but because the memory still held a certain sweetness. The streetlight behind me glowed like a beacon, golden and steady, guarding the place where we had said everything we needed to say. I paused there, hands tucked into my coat pockets, listening to the distant hum of the city and the soothing hush of the rain. And in that quiet moment, something settled inside me. Not an ending, but a gentle closing. A soft click of the heart. I whispered into the mist, barely audible even to myself. Thank you. Not to you alone, but to the rain, to the night, to the version of myself that finally understood how to let go without grief. I continued walking, and each step felt lighter, not toward anything in particular, but away from what no longer weighed me down. The world felt vast again, in a comforting way. Streetlights stretched ahead like little islands of warmth. The rain wrapped me in its quiet embrace. My breath came easier, fuller. I wasn't leaving the moment. The moment was simply walking with me. And as I headed home, the soft glow behind me became part of the story I would carry, not as a wound, but as a gentle glowing lantern in the memory of a rainy night. By the time I reached the quieter end of the street, the rain had thinned into a delicate mist so light it felt more like breath than weather. The city around me had softened into muted silhouettes, buildings glowing faintly behind wet windows, their lights trembling through the drifting moisture. Everything looked blurred, peaceful, dreamlike. The kind of world you could walk through slowly without feeling the need to arrive anywhere. My shoes brushed against damp leaves scattered along the pavement. Each step created a soft, rhythmic sound that blended into the lull of the night. I didn't hurry. There was no reason to. For the first time in a long while, I felt entirely present and folded, unguarded, breathing in rhythm with the rain. At the next intersection, a small shop still had its lights on. Warm orange lanterns hung above the doorway, casting a gentle glow across the sidewalk. Steam curled from a teapot inside, fogging the window in swirls. I slowed, watching a figure behind the counter wipe down empty tables with quiet patience. The scene felt tender, almost like a painting unassuming, but full of the comfort found in simple routines. For a moment, I imagined stepping inside, ordering tea, sitting near the window with the rain whispering against the glass. The idea felt soothing, but tonight wasn't meant for new places. Tonight was meant for wandering, for letting the night hold me without asking for anything. So I kept walking. As I moved past the glowing shops and the dim alleys between them, I began to notice the little details the rain always brought to life. The glistening sheen on old brick walls, the delicate drip from balcony flowers, the way lamplight fractured into golden shards on every wet surface. Even the deepest shadows felt softened by the mist. I breathed in the scent of petrichor, faint wood smoke, and the gentle sweetness of someone brewing nighttime tea behind a half-open window. And in all these details, something inside me loosened further. I passed the playground where we once sat on the swings late at night, talking about everything and nothing at all. Back then, we talked about travels we wanted to take, books we wanted to read, the little corners of life that felt meaningful. A memory surfaced of you laughing as you swung higher, shoes cutting through the cool air, raindrops glinting as they fell around you. The sound had carried through the empty park light, right, so free. Tonight, I smiled at the memory. It didn't ache. It simply sat beside me like an old friend Dot as I walked farther. The street grew narrower, lined with tall trees whose branches dripped softly overhead. Their silhouettes reached toward each other across the road, forming a quiet canopy. The sound of rain shifted into a calming rhythm, light tapping on leaves, gentle drips landing on the ground, the distant sigh of water running along gutters. I paused beneath one of the trees, leaning briefly against its trunk. The bark was cool and damp beneath my palm. Above, leaves clustered in clusters like small umbrellas, catching the mist before letting it fall in soft threads. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the natural rhythm wash over me. Dot in that stillness, I realized something simple and true. Goodbyes don't end stories. They just change their shape. And tonight, ours had reshaped into something calm and quiet, a chapter closed with intention, leaving nothing sharp behind. I opened my eyes again and continued walking. Dot as I emerged from the tree-lined street. The city opened up into a wide, calm stretch. Few cars passed. Their headlights glided smoothly across the wet road, leaving silver trails that faded as quickly as they appeared. Beyond them, the faint skyline shimmered under the clouded sky. For the first time in what felt like years, I let my mind wander freely, not toward what was lost, but toward what could be. I imagined myself in future moments, reading under warm light, cooking late at night with music playing softly, meeting someone new who understood the language of quiet pauses. I imagined laughter that didn't carry the weight of comparison. I imagined softness that didn't need to mirror anything from before. None of these imaginings felt like longing or urgency. They felt like possibilities, gentle, distant, patient. I reached a corner where an old street bench sat beneath a willow tree. Its branches hung low, weighed down by the rain, creating a natural curtain around the bench. I slipped beneath the leafy canopy, sat down, and exhaled deeply. The world around me faded into a soft orchestra. Water dripping from leaves, a faint rumble of thunder somewhere far away, the steady hum of the city settling into night. The bench was cool beneath me, grounding. I watched the rain bead and fall from the ends of willow branches, each drop forming slowly before releasing, as if the tree itself understood the art of letting go gently. For the first time since the beginning of the evening, a small wave of emotion rose in me. Not sadness, but tenderness. A tenderness for the person I was when I loved you. A tenderness for the person I had become after we drifted apart. A tenderness for both of us, learning how to say goodbye without breaking. I closed my eyes again, dotting the soft darkness behind my lids. I could still see the golden streetlight where we stood, the way your face glowed faintly in the rain, the quiet steadiness in your voice when you said goodbye, the gentle dissolving of our final words into the night. And I realized then that closure doesn't always come from moving on. Dot. Sometimes it comes from standing still long enough for the heart to unclench. The rain softened further, almost like a lullaby. My breath found a companion in its rhythm. Slow, even, peaceful. Dot. After a few minutes, I opened my eyes, rose from the bench, and brushed the droplets from my coat. The night felt lighter now, no longer carrying the weight of farewell, but the whisper of something new beginning. I turned toward home. Dot, and walked. Dot, not away from anything, but toward a gentler version of myself. Dot. By the time I reached my building, The rain had softened into a thin, shimmering veil, almost weightless as it drifted through the air. The stairway leading up to my apartment glistened under the dim porch light, each step reflecting patches of gold and silver like scattered pieces of the night sky. I placed my hand on the cool railing and moved slowly, not out of tiredness, but because something inside me wanted to savor these final quiet moments of the evening. The hallway smelled faintly of old wood and someone's chamomile tea brewing behind a closed door. A soft murmur of distant television noise hummed through the wall, accompanied by the steady patter of rain against the building's outer frame. Everything felt familiar, ordinary, comforting, but in a way that carried new meaning after the night I had just lived. When I unlocked my door, the warm hush of my apartment welcomed me like a gentle exhale. I slipped off my shoes, placed my umbrella near the entrance, and let the silence wrap around me. It wasn't an empty silence. It felt full like a blanket still carrying the last traces of someone's embrace. I moved toward the kitchen and filled the kettle with water. The metallic click of the lid, the low hum of the heating element beginning its work, the faint steam rising, simple sounds, simple motions. But they grounded me. They reminded me of how healing resides in the smallest routines. While waiting for the water to boil, I lit a small candle on the counter. Its flame flickered softly, reflecting off the nearby window pane, where raindrops clung and trembled before sliding downward. The glow of the candle combined with the amber light from the lamp in my living room, creating a cocoon of warmth inside the cool, rainy night. I brewed a cup of jasmine tea, your favorite. Tonight, it felt right, not as longing, but as a gentle farewell to a chapter I had carried tenderly for so long. The steam curled upward, fragrant and calming. I lifted the cup with both hands, letting its warmth seep into my palms before taking the first slow sip. The flavor was delicate, soft, floral, the kind of taste that feels like a whisper. I walked to the window, settling into the armchair that had become my quiet corner. The cushion welcomed me easily, shaping itself around my weight. Outside, the rain whispered against the glass in soft, rhythmic patterns, a lullaby written by the sky. And as I sat there, watching the droplets drift and merge, something inside me settled, quietly and completely. For a long while, I simply breathed. The room around me was dim, lit only by the candle and the small lamp, their warm glows blending into a soft honey-colored haze. My tea warmed my hands. The rain warmed my thoughts. My heartbeat matched the gentle rhythm outside. In that peaceful stillness, memories floated gently to the surface, not as sharp moments, but as soft silhouettes. The way you used to lean your head on my shoulder while watching raindrops race down a window. The quiet mornings when neither of us spoke, but everything felt understood. The simple pleasure of walking side by side, letting the world unfold without urgency. They drifted through me like feathers on a breeze light, tender, unhurried. Then other memories joined them. The ones from tonight, your steady voice, your soft smile, the golden glow of the streetlight shining on our last words. Goodbye spoken with peace, not pain. A chapter closed with gentleness. A moment embraced, not resisted. The tea warmed my throat as I swallowed, and a quiet truth settled into me. Some people leave, but their warmth stays. Not as a shadow, not as a wound, but as a soft imprint of who we were when we loved each other gently. I leaned my head back against the armchair, feeling the cushion cradle me. Rain traced silver paths down the window, each drop catching the candlelight before becoming part of the flowing pattern. Outside, the world was still wrapped in mist, hushed and delicate. I thought about the future not with urgency, but with openness. The kind that doesn't require answers, only breath. I imagined quiet mornings with sunlight slipping through the curtains. Evenings reading by this same window, laughter shared with someone new someday, a different hand holding mine, a different face across the table, a different kind of softness waiting patiently in the distance. And none of these thoughts hurt. They felt like gentle possibilities. I lifted the cup again, taking another slow sip. The tea was cooler now, but still fragrant, still comforting, still familiar dot in that moment. Sitting alone but not lonely, I realized that tonight would stay with me, not as an ending to grieve, but as a memory that would always hum quietly beneath the noise of future days. A memory made of rain and warm yellow light, and words spoken truthfully. A memory that closed a door softly. A memory that taught me how to stand in the quiet without fear. The rain eased once more, softening into a delicate drizzle. My breath matched its rhythm. My heart felt unburdened. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the calm, a small, gentle thought rose, simple, steady. True, I am okay. I placed my tea on the table beside me and closed my eyes, letting the rain be the last sound I listened to before drifting into the warmth of my own silence. Tomorrow would come, and I would meet it with a lighter heart.